And a good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, General Manager at WEIU. Today we're joined by two folks from Lakeland College. We have, and I hope I get the titles right, Lakeland College Division Chair, Math and Science and Bio Instructor Ike Nwosu.
Yes, that's correct.
And Geography and Earth Science Instructor Mike Rudibaugh.
Correct.
All right. So thanks for coming over, guys, on this Monday, and we're going to talk a lot of things, Lakeland College and STEM and math and science and all that stuff. But first, if maybe each of you could give a little bit of introduction of yourself and your current position and what you do at Lakeland, and maybe just a touch on background. So we'll let Ike go first.
Okay. I started at Lakeland as a student in January of 2002 and fell in love with the community college, just the concept of it, the close relationships between faculty, staff, and students. I did want to work there before I left the college, and that was a goal. Came to EIU, and before I was done, the opportunity presented itself, and I've been there as a full-time staff since fall of 2006.
We have exciting news we'll talk about in a little bit about you as well, but we'll let Mike go.
Mike Rudibaugh. I started, and I'm a Charleston native. I started at Lakeland in 1995. It's almost painful to say. I've been there that long. I was a PhD student at Indiana State University in 1995, and I just started my PhD program, and a tenure track position had opened up at Lakeland that very semester, and I applied for the job in Earth Science Geography, and I got it. And I was tired of being a broke college student, and it looked very attractive to me. But I was connected to the community college because I went to Lincoln Trail College. And I had a soft spot for community colleges because I'm not for sure if I would have went into higher ed if there wasn't a community college. I think I would have been one of those students that fell through the gaps. And so when the position came open at Lakeland, my wife had went there, and I didn't know much about it at the time, but I had a great experience at a community college, and I knew it was important to me on my pathway. And so when the position came open, I was very excited to get placed there, and I've been there now for 26, 27 years, and it has been a great career, and it's just been a lot of fun working with the students and staff I've had the opportunity to work with.
And ironically, at Indiana State, you were working with Dr. Gatrill, who now is my boss, or our boss, at WEIU.
Absolutely.
It's a small world.
Absolutely.
Yes,
we actually published an article about community my dissertation was about community colleges.
So that's really, I did not know that before you walked in, so that makes it even better day. I guess the thing we want to talk about a lot about is math and science and how important it is. So why don't we just say, math and science and talk about why it's so important, and really why it's so important right now for young people, or even people that are looking to change careers, to know and have a great background in math and science.
Well, I would say we're in our golden age of math, golden age of science. The last 2 years has been about science. Science has been the forefront of the media over the last 2 years with the pandemic. You look at your phones, you look at your streaming services at home, you look at your vehicles, you look at McDonald's. There isn't anything that doesn't have a strong foundation, underlying foundation of math and or science. And you don't have to look at math and science as being a PhD holder or user of PhD information. It's at every level, from manufacturing to agriculture. And so in this day and age, it's so important to find our niche through math and science in any field, on almost every field right now. And that's why we're here. We want to explore, work with you guys and just explore our minds and our options regarding math and science in our area.
Want to add anything, Mike?
Well, just to follow up, what Ike was talking about was most people don't realize that 2/3 of the American economy is driven by STEM jobs, directly or indirectly, and that's
and tell us, for the folks who don't know, what STEM means and what it stands for.
Science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and some people are adding a second M for medicine, and of course that opens up the healthcare field, which is a massive addition
and a need.
And a need.
Yeah.
And obviously community colleges with their roots with nursing programs were right in the heart and have been from the very beginning. And when governors of states, when presidents, when they're looking at building competitive economies, it's very interesting that no matter what party's in power, there's always a STEM task force. It's one of the true nonpartisan things I like when you see how our country works is everybody understands, like what I was saying, everything is tied to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And so as we rebuild our economy and grow new ones, there's no way that math and science are not part of the conversation, no matter what sector of the economy you're looking at, and that's what's exciting for us.
And there's a shortage of workers, so it's even more important now that we convince young people or change people who want to change to go into some kind of STEM foundation, correct?
That's correct.
So I guess how do we do that? I mean, how does Lakeland College do it? And then can Eastern help and talk about how we can convince those folks to come that way?
So when you look at Lakeland College, we serve a district that's about 4,000 square miles. And if you take a tour around the district, yes, it's an agrarian district, but you have industry, we have hospitals, and we have everything in between. And Lakeland is uniquely situated in that we are an open access institution. So you can walk into Lakeland today, tomorrow, and plot a path to any degree you would want. Okay? There are ways to go about it. Some are easier than others, but there is a way to plot a path as soon as you walk in. So I walked into Lakeland for the first time 2002 January, first week of January. Here I am today. I still remember the
20
person.
years, eh?
Yep, still remember the person I talked to. We will plot a path for you. Your path may change, and we're nimble in that we can offer flexible classes. We can still do a better job at that, and we can talk about that later. But there is a pathway from you just walking in. Just walk in onto the campus and meet with our counselors, and we can plot a path.
And I guess we'll just end it. For you, in take about 20 years, you're going to be named vice president, or you take over as vice president in July, correct?
That is
So that's a pretty
correct.
good path you've had over the 20 years.
It's all due to Lakeland. It's all due
It
to
all
Lakeland.
started. It's a great story. It's a success story, and when the 20 years right on the dot is a pretty good path when people think about where they'd want to be.
For sure.
The pandemic has also changed a lot of the way we have taught our students the past couple of years. We're knock on wood. We're starting to come out of it. The mask mandates are coming down a little bit. Talk about though the effect and how we move forward. If both of you could.
Go ahead.
Well, I can tell you that there's a lot of excitement with students coming to class without the mask. And there is, I think we've talked about it a lot, and I'm sure this is happening, a conversation across the country, is that we're coming out of the COVID kind of wave, and students and faculty are readjusting to literally physically seeing each other again. And this generation is adjusting, kind of going back to the old routine. But what we're finding is it's been long enough that we're now producing a very different hybrid environment. So as we engage students, many of them have been online now for multiple semesters in a row.
Yeah.
And so, in a sense, like you said, Jeff, we're kind of coming out of COVID, but we always ask the question, a lot of teachers are saying, is it really ever structurally going to be exactly the way it was? I'm not for sure. Yeah. But we're increasingly talking about hybrid instruction, where a lot of us, even though we're teaching traditionally, part of the hours of the class are available online, or you could be accessing them simultaneously through a Zoom conference call. So inevitably, even though as we kind of move out of the COVID cycle, I'm not for sure the business cycle of higher ed isn't inevitably going to be changed or at least somewhat modified.
It's definitely going to be marked for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
In some way.
And I think the schools that understand that and process that to serve students, and dare I say gas prices are an elephant in the room as well, that the flexibility and the adjustability and adaptability of a school nonetheless has been tested in the schools that learn their lessons well and are nimble. And I think that's what community colleges, I think we kind of view ourselves as more speedboats, is our ability to adjust on the fly. But right now, I think we're in a transition period, and I know a lot of us in administration are starting to look at, how effectively are we going to be a year or two from now? Is it going to be exactly like it was before COVID? I'm not for sure it will. I mean, it is going to be modified a bit.
And that's the irony, that's the challenge of today. What will tomorrow be like? I don't know anyone can nail that comfortably.
No, and mostly this soon, because we're still not all the way out of it. I saw this weekend there was a couple of places that had increases in COVID, so we're still not out of the woods completely. So that, not to interrupt, but could you continue?
But that's true, and again, almost to what Mike has shared with us, it's extremely important that higher ed institutions, Lakeland, we're talking about Lakeland right now, remains responsive to the community need. Throughout the last 2 years, we've had more and more students working. We have had less males coming to college than we've had previously. So what are those demographic changes? What are those structural changes? You have industry going right out to the high schools to recruit students to work for them. You look at our working population at Lakeland, that's just about the majority of our students are working. So what does instruction look like in this new evolving era? Well, flexibility, it shouldn't be a choice. School or work, or school earning a living shouldn't be a choice. So I would call that, we're moving into a time where that might be a false choice. And any institution that's able to provide those two things for our students today, you can go to work, but you can also go to school at the same time, will stand stronger than other institutions that can't adapt to that. To that effect, we've invested quite a bit of money in technology into our classrooms, and some instructors are able to teach from their classrooms simultaneously with students being in class physically and wherever they may be, lunch break at work, depending on the time. And so there's a lot more to uncover there and to make that more effective, but we're building the infrastructure for that kind of hybrid instruction.
Do you have trouble to find the right amount of teachers, and then teachers that have been doing it 25 years to get the old dog to change a little bit, to adapt to the technology?
I think you nailed it. I mean, I was going to bring that up you have to imagine in a science programs and math programs, so much of it is, especially lab courses, you tell a chemistry teacher, a biology teacher with a lab course to go online like I had to. That's not necessarily always going to go over well, because those are parts of classes that haven't necessarily always transferred well online. And a lot of students would tell you that part of the class that really benefits from face-to-face is when you have a lab exposure. How do you deal with, like Ike teaches A&P and you have cadavers and you're teaching about anatomy? How do you put that online? Or you're teaching chemistry, and part of it is actually seeing reactions, and actually that's hard to replicate. So of all the departments, a lot of the STEM programs, this hit hard because some of the stuff we do is very difficult to replicate online. So that's another one of the challenges, is the area that we teach in at times is even more pressed for challenges, and we've had to come up with creative solutions, and I would still say we're still sorting out some elements. But to answer the question, to say all teachers are fans of entirely online, I would say that there's definitely a group of faculty and teachers that are still somewhat like they want to go back and at least do labs back face-to-face.
Yep.
You were talking, off air about some of the jobs that are going to be available for students who get into the STEM programs and really do well in math and science. Can you talk about what kind of jobs these folks are going to have down the line?
Well, in the state of Illinois, and the United States, Department of Labor, they're constantly putting out lists for what sectors have the greatest shortages. They're always trying to figure out how do we help the economy and spur, because they want to, we want to get tax revenues back up. We want people working, and certain industries and fields are just hemorrhaging because they don't have enough workers in those fields. And I printed out a list for Illinois, and these the 6 fastest growing areas with shortages are advanced manufacturing, transportation, distribution, logistics, agribusiness and food processing, life science and biotechnology, energy, and business and professional services and big data. And when you look at those sectors, to a science and math teacher, that's like we're licking our chops. I mean, that's what we train when you take a bio course, or you take a chem course, or you take a geology course. And like I'm a geoscientist, and with the cost of energy right now, you have to believe that this is one of the hottest sectors, and one of the greatest debates in the country right now is domestic energy production. Yep. And that's right in the heart of what I would be teaching. These sectors cannot grow unless we get more students in our pipeline. Our pipeline is what feeds the occupations in those sectors. So that's our challenge, is how do we communicate to students the pathways that Ike was talking about, that how does one leave high school and move into, per se, go into an area like nursing, which is a well-known occupation. But within nursing, there's many different tracks. And being able to communicate that the workers in these fields have higher placement rates, and they typically make almost twice as much as non-STEM workers, these have to be selling points for families when they're making a conversation amongst their family. Do we invest in higher ed? When you look at the return on investment, there's jobs out there, and they tend to make more money than the average worker, almost double. Those are leverage points that we need to pull. Because, when families make an investment or make a decision about investing in higher ed, STEM fields have a lot of the return on investment that families want to see. I think we have to do a better job of communicating those so families can make an informed decision, that you would say, well, I don't want to go into that field and say be going to an engineering area. Well, when you can process what do engineers do, how many jobs are out there, and what they make, that might motivate you to take that tough physics class or that tough math class. But when you take that tough class and not knowing what the end of the line looks like I talked about the pathway, it's difficult to take that hard class if you don't know what's on the back end of it. And I think that's what we have to do a better job at, is helping communicate that, yeah, you might not want to go into a nursing program. You're going to take a lot of hard chemistry and bio classes. But when you start learning, and I have a colleague at Lakeland, his son went into nursing, and he's kind of teased me. We go out for lunch. He goes, I'm going to have to borrow money from my son because he's making more than me. And he's been out of school a year. I think that's what every family inevitably wants to hear. They want to see their kid went to school, and they saw some return on investment for what they spent on school. And like my colleague has taught for 20 years, has a son that is making as much or more than him, a year or two out of a nursing program. I think that's the kind of data we need to communicate about STEM careers.
It's a great answer. The other thing I would ask them, to throw this out, is one of the things I think both Mattoon and Charleston, and probably a lot of the other area school districts have had a problem with, is keeping kids wanting to stay here and live here in the future. Mm-hmm. More and more students, as soon as they get out of either Mattoon High, Lakeland, or Eastern, they're gone. So we
brain drain.
Yeah, so we have to figure a way to keep them here. Is Lakeland looking into that? I know I'm here.
Definitely.
Can you talk about that a little bit, Ike?
Definitely. So the brain drain,
like
the
that.
STEM brain, it's not only STEM, it's just across all fields, is, I would say, an unfortunate circumstance for the lack of information and knowledge. Like I said earlier in this conversation, if you go around our district, 4,000 square mile district, and look and visit the robotic advanced manufacturing firms, look at the hospital. I mean, there's just a lot going on. But until I became division chair, of which Mike is really, preparing for, I didn't know they existed. We have companies here making video cameras for advanced cars. All cars seem to have cameras right now, not just the reverse, the reverse camera. And we're doing that in our district. So I think we need to do a better job, as Mike said, in showing our parents in our district, look, you have a child who might have a fledgling interest in science or math. This is where they can be in the district. We need to work with industry, and we are currently, we have a few partnerships where we take Lakeland College students, take them on field trips, try to arrange internships for them with these industry partners. Bottom line is the pipeline starts really in elementary school.
So I was going to ask, what grade or what age do we need to start hitting the students?
Elementary, offer, there's a lot coming in that way, but we also partnering with elementary schools. We've had a science fair at Riddle in Mattoon, just getting students interested in science so that it's not just an academic subject, but something they can take home, they can talk about. That conversation in elementary school, and then maybe they visit Lakeland campus in 8th grade for our career fair.
Every day, yeah.
And then that's another touch point. And as we move on, high school, they may again come to Lakeland or EIU for a visit, or work again with industry and take high school students, take them to the industry partners and say, hey, here's a day at XYZ company, and now they know. And so I think a stronger relationship with industry partners in getting not college students, high school students and college students to see what they do, it will be a huge step in exposing just how much STEM we have in our district.
And you guys are going to have a math and science open house. Talk about the details there.
That's on April 1st from 10 to 12, I believe. We're going to have life sciences, physical sciences, we'll have chemistry. Mike here will be presenting something on GIS. I'll let him speak to that. But essentially, we're going to showcase the kind of equipment we have at Lakeland. Me being a bioscientist, teaching anatomy and physiology, we'll have a cadaver tour for anyone who wants to delve into that. But we also recently acquired a digital cadaver. Again, going towards the fact that we have to be flexible. If a student can't come in for a cadaver session once or twice, could we offer that digitally, and they could be wherever they need to be? We can't do that every single lecture, but at least we have that capability. We have a chemistry presentation in which students can identify a molecule, which is very relevant to a lot of food industry fields. Mike?
Well, one of the things to kind of get to your question, Jeff, is we're losing population.
Yeah, that's the
we could talk about brain drain, but it's just we want to keep people in the area, in particular our brightest and talented kids. They're going to drive our economy of the future. And one of the things that we know about science and math and engineering is talking about science puts them to sleep in the classroom. When we can link what scientists do on the job, or when you see science in action, it can be quite spectacular. So when you see a demonstration of people working with the cadaver, is much more dynamic than probably looking at it in a book. For example, and when I do a GIS example, I'm going to map and do a demonstration of showing what big data looks like. And I'm going to map 12 million businesses in the United States that I'm going to allow somebody in the room to be able to sort what's your favorite place to go out to eat. And I'm going to tell the database to locate where all of those franchises are located. Then we'll probably analyze why or why not are we getting one in East Central Illinois? What are some of the patterns we're seeing on the map? But the ability to sort out 12 million records in a matter of 5 to 10 seconds, and live. This would be a live, so somebody could come out and say Red Lobster or something like that, or Applebee's. We'll be able to construct a national franchise map for any franchise somebody in the crowd wants to do, and that's what when you start learn how to use big data. All of a sudden, when you say, "Well, I don't like work," databases sound boring. But when you start linking it to what some people relate to, something they want. Everybody always talks about they want more shopping in Charleston and Mattoon. We want to see more stuff out by the mall, in Mattoon and out by the interstate. I mean, you can make it personal to somebody and let them physically see that. I think that's when science and math get exciting. And that's what, I don't know if books are going to become fossilized, but I think down the road, if we're going to promote science and math, I think that, like I talked about with the industry partners, I don't know if there's a higher value thing we could do, is giving students the direct indication that industries want them. They want to use them. They want to see them on the site. And I think the students, that would be a great selling point for math and science careers if we could get them to be exposed to math science from a more occupational perspective. I think that would really connect the job and the academics together.
All right, we got a couple minutes left. I know there are a couple of the things that, like I wanted to talk about. Registration is March 23rd. It opens up. Any details there you want to get out? As well as it's going to be your guys' in-person graduation.
Yes, in-person graduation is May 13th, if I'm not mistaken. It's in person. People, maskless for the most bit. Registration, two things. We understand as a college that finances are hard. People have been hit hard. Currently, gas prices and all that. So, couple things. Lakeland is offering, well, I should say this, the board is considering today at 6 p.m., I believe, approving an initiative in which we will reduce tuition for students by roughly 10%.
Wow.
With that, the college has had this already approved, where we will use federal financial aid as a last application to any student's financial aid need as they are eligible, meaning that federal financial aid is not going to be added up front to pay for tuition. We're going to sort throughout all the scholarships or anything a student is eligible for, and then apply the financial aid federal last.
Back in, okay.
And so if they have anything left over, guess what? It goes into the student's pocket. So take a class, take two, keep momentum. It's hard for everybody, but keep momentum towards your career.
All right. Real quickly, since we're out of time, if somebody wants to get a hold of either of you, what's the easiest way? Maybe an email or phone number, if you don't mind giving that out.
Office number for Mike Rudibaugh, 217-234-5244.
Okay.
And then my phone number is 217-234-5309.
All right. We had some other stuff we need to talk about. We're out of time. You guys are really good, so I appreciate you coming in on this Monday, and maybe we'll have you back here soon and talk about the next step and maybe the post-pandemic, where we stand and where we go after that, if that's okay with you all.
That'd be great.
Would love to.
All right, well, thanks again. Everybody have a great Monday. We are WEIU. Everybody have a great day.